Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my homeowner association sued me to take my land away from me. I am an old disabled farmer and they learned why they shouldn't mess with me. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. Let me tell you about my country. It's the land of the free and the home of the brave. It's where you can be anything you want. It is where no one should ever stomp you down to get ahead, but let me tell you something that happened to me last year. It was terrible, it was nonsense, and by far, it really ruffled my feathers more than I could ever imagine. I have been a farmer for the past 50 years, it was my profession. It was what I loved to do, and I was not gonna let any crook or two-timing son of a gun get in the way of my livelihood and my dream. I had been a widower for quite some time, so I've learned to tough it out here in the great woods of rural Nebraska. I'm from the Midwest, and as the saying goes, for crying out loud, I would rather put a handful of hay in my oats in the morning than be snookered by some crazy con artists and crooks. However, that is exactly what happened. I ended up toughing it out though and came back with some heavy-duty fighting gloves to rightfully keep what was mine. So like I said, I'd been a farmer all my life. My parents and their parents were in the business as well, and I had bought this land many years ago from an auction when the economy was not that great. I had built up all kinds of crops and even harvested pumpkins in the autumn. I had cows, horses, and lots of hay to sell. My property sat next to a state highway and you could hear the cars go by. Some nights I would go out back and listen to them. I often wondered, why would anyone want to be next to the highway? And as for me, I love being around all the action. So when some idiots built a new development next to my property line near the highway, I got a little nervous. I had heard stories of evil HOAs building right next to farm property and the owners then having to sell it because it imposed on their land or something. In these cases, it turned out that the owners could not pay the legal fees when the HOA took them to court. Honestly, these HOAs are ruthless, let me tell you. When they built up a new development with single-family homes right next to my property, I felt like the saying, "he's snookered" couldn't have been more real. I'm 70 years old for crying out loud, and I know a thing or two about people taking advantage of others, and I didn't like it, not one bit. I had worked hard to pay off my debts and own my land free and clear. When I got a letter in the mail one day saying that the housing development they built is on their land, that's when I got fed up. They claimed there was an error in the deed and that the property lines were drawn wrong. They demanded that I sell a portion of my land to them at a fraction of the value, and this thing was worth over $1.5 million. I yelled so loud when I opened that letter, what in tarnation, I went outside that day when I got the letter and sat on my porch. I could hear the cars go by on the highway, and then I got to thinking. I need to have proof in case they show up and try to sue me, so I go down to the county seat here near Lincoln, Nebraska, and get the deed and title for my property examined. The judge looks at everything and gives me the okay. A few weeks go by and I'm sitting on my porch again. I hear the cars go by and I doze off in a little nap. Suddenly though, this giant pickup truck with 4 other vehicles shows up behind it, trailblazing through my property, causing the dust to go up. I start to cough when they pull up to my driveway. The dust flies in my face and I just stare at them, not knowing what to do. "John Bednar, is this you?" A man in sunglasses asks me. "Yes sir, that's me. Can I ask what this is all about?" The man looks at me and puts a toothpick in his mouth. "This is about your land, sir. It belongs to the HOA. Did you not receive our letter?" He looks at me with a smile on his face, but I could see right through him. These people were up to no good. I could smell crooks all over them. Yes, I got it. I also have this letter right here, straight from the county courthouse. It's my title and land deed. You are dead wrong about this, buddy. Can I ask you to get off my property now? I wave the deed at him and give him a smirk. "Sure, sir, but just one thing. We are taking you to court if you refuse to hand over your property in a quitclaim deed. We have already started legal proceedings in the county. You will receive a letter shortly." The man flicks his toothpick from his mouth and it lands right near my feet. "Excuse me?" I ask him, and they all drive away. I look down at the toothpick and pick it up. I squeezed it so hard that it cut into my palms and started bleeding. But let me tell you, that's not the end of it. A few weeks go by and I get this letter from the HOA in the mail along with the documents that I am being sued. They claim that my property has lowered the land value and they are due compensation. What the hell? This is where I really start to get fed up. Now granted, I was a little prepared, I got even more prepared and started researching property rights and HOA laws. The case dragged on for weeks and they took me to court. I showed up, but the man who confronted me that day was not there. It was a woman. I guess they were trying to get me to suck up to her or be nice or something. I did not fall for it though. While standing in court too and talking to the judge, I pointed out that they came rolling up on my property, trying to intimidate me and get me to sign over my land so they can build more and rack up their profits. I told the judge too that I was disabled. I had a bad leg and I could barely walk on it. I got in a tractor accident once and fell, and I've had limited mobility ever since. The judge frowned and said, "I'm so sorry to hear that." That day after court, when I got back to the farm, I noticed that something seemed a bit off. All my grass was burned on one side of my property, and there was spray paint on the side of my barn. It was some kind of graffiti. I could not make out what it meant. And then when I go inside the barn, that's when things got really messed up. One of my tractors got vandalized and the tires were all bent out of shape. Someone must have come in with some heavy-duty equipment and messed it all up. I had a feeling it was the HOA's fault. Maybe it was the guy with the toothpick. I don't know. Any other way, I was sure that they were not gonna take my farm out from under me. I went back in the house when I got home after looking around and sorted through the mail. There were not any new letters, but when I walked out to the mailbox, I see a handwritten letter from a guy named Dylan. In the letter it states that they are going to start fining me for infractions of any sort on my property. At this point I get even more fired up. Infractions? I walk back to the house and open up a can of soup to eat. I sit and watch the evening news and stare out my window, listening to the cars go by. Sometimes I wonder if the American dream is everything it's cracked up to be. It turns out though it still is. The next day I go into town and go to the local library. I research HOA some more on their computers and pull up old incidents of farm owners getting their land sold and taken away. I research lawyers in the area and realized that it's going to take a chunk of change to get me out of this mess. So I decided to represent myself. The HOA and property laws were pretty strict in my area, and it seemed that the HOA got away with just about anything. I was flipping through old news articles, so I had an idea. I needed to go back to the courthouse to see the surrounding property deeds. I needed to check up and make sure that everything was in tip-top shape, or else it would be my goose that would be cooked. I went and researched the titles and deeds to my property and did a reverse search of the land and when it was bought and sold. I also did some research on the properties adjacent to my land, and what I found was startling. The deed had been changed since the last time I checked it. The property lines had been changed so that the HOA would profit from the sale of the land. I immediately went and talked with the judge who was in charge of the case and asked if his secretary could pull up her physical copy of the deed they had on file. They kept them for so many years back. When they compared the two to the one I saw online and the one I pulled up earlier, it was sure enough a bunch of crooks trying to swindle their way in. I pressed charges and the judge ruled in my favor. It was a multi-million-dollar judgment that was going to take these suckers down. It turns out that the HOA president had been living an extravagant lifestyle. This Dylan guy was in over his little head. When the judge ordered that he arrive in court and he missed a court date because he was sunbathing in the Bahamas, that is when the tables started to turn for them. The court found that Mr. HOA President Dylan was using the homeowner association's fees to fund his lifestyle. The court got a hold of his money and the HOA ended up going bankrupt. They could not pay for their court fees, let alone the bills that kept coming from their other properties. No more sitting at the beach for him. That HOA was going down big time. In the meantime, the property they were gonna build took a lot longer than expected. They needed more money to develop it and it ended up sitting idle for a while. The last time I checked, some other developers are now taking it over and are not as shady as this one. I'm just grateful for what I have and for the ability to defend myself when these tyrants started coming knocking. With all my legal knowledge and the research I had done, it was well worth the fight to keep my property and continue to live a peaceful life where I'm sure it will last until the day I die. And for those wondering, Mr. President douchebag Dylan ended up in a nice cozy little jail cell for the scam that he was running. I'm not sure he will ever set foot on the Bahamas again. Good riddance, idiot. And yeah, ripe stars, I am happy that this entitled douchebag HOA president got what he deserved, and I hope he will never terrorize any neighborhood community again, and especially no farmers. Either way, if you enjoy the HOA stories, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment, because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much, and the next one is a coworker revenge story. So back when I first started in my industry, a friend of mine from university landed a job at my company too. The place was 4 levels with an atrium in the middle. I was in the 3rd floor and he was on the 1st, but I could see him from my desk. He didn't know this yet and he didn't know where I was seated. Anyway, so I let him get settled in for the morning and then I anonymously message him. You could do this in our internal messaging system. Carl, fake name, meet me at my office immediately. I watched as he looked slightly panicked, looking around the office, and then he replies with, "Sorry, who is this? And can I ask where your office is?" Me, now, Carl, I don't really have time for this. He started to look really panicked and then got up and walked into the atrium, turning around in circles, looking at the offices. I felt bad about it now and waved down to him saying, "Now, Carl." Being the good-hearted guy he laughed and mouthed, "Idiot," and I went back to work giggling. A few days later I started hearing a very occasional and very high-pitched "ee" like beep in the office I shared with 2 others. It was very subtle, almost out of our hearing spectrum to the point where you were not sure if you were hearing it. But once I did accept I really was hearing it, it became more and more noticeable with each beep and more irritating. The timing was unpredictable. Think 10 minutes between beeps, 30 minutes between, 2 minutes, 1 hour, etc. So I let it go for quite a while before I started to accept that I might be going mad and asked the others if they heard it too. They both looked almost relieved and said that they had, and it was driving them mad too. So we started looking around the office, pulling shelves apart, emptying drawers, pulling pictures down, etc. I even sat outside the office for a few hours to make sure it was not coming from outside. It wasn't. We also timed the beeps all day to see if we could find a pattern, but there was no pattern, it seemed completely random. The following day we got serious and started pulling apart our PCs one at a time. We were all looking a bit wild-eyed by this point. Eventually, as I'm sure you have guessed, Carl arrived at the office laughing at us sitting on the floor with our PCs in pieces and told us that he had taped this small evil noise device under a shelf. He said he would have left it longer, but our boss thought it had gone on long enough. Touché, Carl. And yeah, ripe stars, that's exactly why I love petty revenge. That was a brilliant, innocent way to get revenge on your coworkers. Either way, the next one is an Am I the A-hole story, and it is titled, I went no contact with stepdaughter after she accused me of spending $30,000 on myself. Posted by user TXRDHD on r/ripe stories, our own subreddit. So I, 55 female, and my dear husband, 65 plus male, have been together for 26 years and married for 24. He has a daughter by a previous marriage and I have 2 sons and a daughter, no kids together. His daughter, 37 female, is the issue. She was 9 when her dad and I got together and her mother was a POS to her. We lived 3 houses down from her and she was at my house more than at her mom's place. I've been accused by her of some truly heinous stuff, none of it true. The entire family on her mother's side has an anger issue and she has made the most of it. She always blows up, calls whomever she is mad at every name in the book, never apologizes, and everything is supposed to be okay the next day or whenever she decides to get over it. I've helped this kid out of assault after escape ever since I've been in her life, both legal and not so legal. The list is endless. My son sold a house out of state that I helped him buy. Because I helped him, he put my name on the deed so I would know if anything was done and would be guaranteed my investment back. It took months to get the paperwork sorted because out of state and everything had to be overnighted back and forth. His daughter decided that because it was taking so long, I had taken the money and spent it on myself or my kids or both and blew up on me. Again, she got into my husband's head about this money. He made me show him every message and email from the buyer and the bank handling his loan. As a result, I've been in no contact with her since August. My husband did not get off scot-free either. I refused to go over there for Thanksgiving. I'm now dividing our family and making him choose, supposedly. I have not tried to stop him from seeing, talking, visiting her and the kids. I miss the kids, but she's never let them go anywhere without her, so them staying overnight is not an option either. All I want is an apology and for her to get help. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole? And yeah, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Is OP the a-hole here or not? Comment number 1 on our subreddit said, I'm going under the assumption that it was your money that you used to help your son, right? If so, please tell your husband that your money is none of his daughter's business. Now, if it was shared money, then the husband should have been told the goings on throughout the whole process, regardless though, still none of her business. So please, as kindly as you can, ask your husband why your money decisions are her concern and why she should feel like she has the right to yell at you for anything. Then OP answered, yes, it was our money, and he was well aware of what was going on. We are both involved in all matters regarding finances, etc. We have no secrets. They have a really close relationship as he was her only parent. The older she gets, the more she thinks she can be involved in our relationship. Also told him that I'm done being her whipping post, whatever she would do is tied to me. Classic confession through projection. It has gotten so bad that I am in counseling and the counselor wants him to join us. I'm at my wit's end but wanna save our relationship. He says he is open to going but has yet to attend. We have had this discussion countless times about her trying to butt in and be the parent in the relationship. It has gotten to the point that he talks to her about something before he talks to me and then swears that we talked about it. I'm almost 60 and don't want to finish my life alone, plus I love the jerk. I just want an apology and her to get help. It's not healthy the way she is so dependent on him and controlling in his life and mine by extension. Comment number 2, not the a-hole at all. Your husband should have corrected his adult brat immediately and insisted that she apologize to you. However, he sounds weak. She sounds like the type who uses anger to avoid accountability, common step stuff unfortunately. You might consider taking a different tact. Are you familiar with Karpman's drama triangle? It's a theory that breaks down conflict into 3 roles: victim, persecutor, and rescuer. Step-parents often find themselves assigned the role of bad cop or persecutor, with the poor widowed children of divorce the perpetual victims. My situation improved when I softened my stance and started showing my pain. My husband finally started protecting me. And yeah, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you would have done in this situation. Maybe we can give OP some advice. And the next one is titled, Was I a jerk to my entitled sister-in-law and mother-in-law? I am 7 months pregnant with my first child. The baby is also the first grandchild/nephew of my husband's family, which everyone is excited about. I lost my mom and father to the pandemic, being an only child, so there's not much of my family. Since the death of my parents 1 year ago, my husband's family has welcomed me with open arms as part of them, and I've become very close to my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. I always wanted to have a gender reveal, and I trusted my sister-in-law to organize everything about this. With 3 days to go before the party, I started to receive messages from all my husband's relatives and even close friends congratulating me on my baby being a boy. I went to ask what happened, and my sister-in-law confessed that she let it slip to my mother-in-law, and she told everyone the sex of the baby after knowing because she couldn't hold it and it took proportions beyond what they imagined. Nobody called me to tell this. The party was then cancelled and I was heartbroken as well as extremely hurt by the two of them. Usually they accompanied me to the ultrasound shopping for the baby room and my mother-in-law would stay at the time of delivery. However, after this breach of trust, I stopped inviting them and asked them to respect my boundaries when they pressured me to go. Honestly, I did not even send them the baby shower invite because I really avoided contact with them as much as possible. Because everyone knew before me that it was a boy, my husband started complaining that I was pushing them away because of a mistake that could happen and that I was being harsh. Yesterday he brought up this, and when I said that I still didn't feel comfortable with them, he said, "Soon you will tell me that my mother won't be able to go to the birth." I think my face showed my response and he started saying that I was being too hard on her because she was just excited, blah blah blah. I had my limit and said, if you keep pushing me, it won't just be your mother who won't be on my labor. So either stop or you won't come in. He started to say that I was crossing lines and that he had a right to have this moment. I was taking this with them too far and he slept on the couch and doesn't talk to me more than necessary now. Am I the jerk here? Well, many are saying it's just a gender reveal. I honestly don't care for that and I think it's tacky, but my mom was the type who likes/loves it and she always dreamed of having grandchildren and she said she was made to be a grandma. She cannot meet my son or even know I am pregnant, so I wanted to do something tacky that I don't care for her, not for me. Everyone knew the importance and the reason. I always wanted to have a gender reveal with my mom there and I didn't have either. Extra, let's get to some points. At no time did I say that I would never approach them again, but right now I don't see myself doing that. I already have grief, pregnancy hormones, and day-to-day stress to deal with, so I don't want anything else to bother me. Obviously, I want my husband to be in childbirth. However, it's a lot of stress and he brings this topic up all the time, and I doubt he'll stop even at the time of my delivery trying to convince me. Even if he says anything about his mother coming, I will ask him to leave. Comment number 1. This was not a mistake, this was a choice. Your sister-in-law made a choice and told mother-in-law. Mother-in-law then made a choice to tell everyone else in the family. Your husband is making the choice to pressure you into things, which is leaving you to make some choices of your own now. You are allowed to make your own choices. Nobody, not even the husband, has a right to be in the delivery room. May seem harsh, but it's true if you don't want. The person going through the procedure has the choice of who gets to be in there. Birthing a child is not an all-access pass for everybody else who wants to be in there. It's also not a spectator sport, it's a medical procedure to get a little human out of another human. Not the a-hole. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. Your husband is a huge a-hole for thinking mommy's excitement is a higher priority than the woman who is actually pregnant. It sounds like your husband is using you as a surrogate to give mommy and sissy a new toy. No way should his mother be at the birth. It is your medical procedure and the only priority is keeping you and the baby safe and healthy. It's not dinner theater where your husband is entitled to sell tickets to the show. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance and I hope to see you again tomorrow.